Alito, yo, hola, however you like to greet. I'm going to do a really quick video here. This is like take 3. My neighbor called me and everybody want my attention when I'm doing a video. But let me go ahead and do this really quick. This video is just ignore the sun. I'm getting all of that sun because I'm vitamin D deficient right now. And so I need it all. This video, I know you guys heard about ADOS, American Descendant of Slaves. We all have our opinions about it, yay, nay, or whatever the case may be. Personally, it's a nay for me because there are some things that's missing from that whole movement that brings about confusion. So I wanted to bring a little bit of clarity when it comes to slavery, and that being typically attached to people of African descent in reference to the Americas, and Americas meaning the entire continent. So you often hear about slavery and it's just immediately attached to African immigrants brought over and enslaved. However, I was doing a little research and I ran upon an act in South Carolina, 1740. So this is an act for the better ordering and governing of Negroes and other slaves in the province or slave code of South Carolina, May 1740. Other slaves, okay? So we know it was people who were not seen politically as Negroes were a part of that other slaves. So it says this, grab this real quick. So this is a transcript of the 1740 Slave Code in South Carolina. It said, whereas in His Majesty's plantation, let that marinate for a second and hold on to it because I'm going to get back to that. Slavery has been introduced and allowed, and the people commonly called Negroes, Indians, mulattoes, and mestizos have been deemed absolute slaves, and the subject of property in the hands of the particular persons being European immigrants, emphasis on the immigrants. Okay, property in the hands of the particular persons, the extent of whose power over such slaves ought to be settled and limited by positive laws. So let's stop and let's find out what positive laws is. The term positive law, when used with respect to the United States Code, as in positive law codification or a positive law title of the code, the term positive law has a special and particular meaning. In general, however, especially in legal philosophy, the term positive law is used more broadly. There is an overlap to be sure, but the meaning of the term as used generally is not identical to the meaning of the term as used with respect to code, and the distinction must be understood to avoid confusion. In general, the term positive law connotes statutes, i.e. law that has been enacted by a duly authorized legislator, immigrants from Europe. As used in this sense, positive law is distinguishable from natural law. The term natural law, especially as used generally in legal philosophy, refers to a set of universal principles and rules that properly govern moral conduct, which we all know that natural law does not involve slavery. So we're dealing in positive law here. So that's what positive law means. So let me read that again. Whereas in His Majesty's plantations in America, slavery has been introduced and allowed, and the people commonly called Negroes, Indians, mulattoes, and mestizos have been deemed absolute slaves, and the subjects of property in the hands of the particular persons, the extent of whose power over such slaves ought to be settled and limited by positive laws, so that the slave may be kept in due subjection and obedience. And the owners and or other persons having the care and government of slaves may be restrained from exercising too great rigor and cruelty over them, as if enslavement is not cruel enough. And that the public peace and order of this province may be preserved. We pray your most sacred majesty that it may be enacted. So basically in 1740, South Carolina had to petition the crown to have these codes put into place. Now, I've watched many ADOS videos, and what I have not heard is the proper people that should be charged for these crimes of enslavement that we now know included Indians, Mestizos, and mulattoes, and Negroes. It did not say Africans. It did not say Africans. Okay? Negroes, Indians, mulattoes, and Mestizos, according to what they wrote to their king. I've not heard the ADOS speak about suing the crown. I have not heard them speaking about suing the Vatican. These would be the people who decided that they could enslave the entire world based upon positive law. It's a man-made up stuff, right? Not natural law, but positive law. So I just wanted to come and break that down a little bit more, because I'm just really not hearing that as a part of the talks. I'm hearing about American descendants of slaves, but what are you talking about exactly? And then we have to bring in, European slaves. They had those too. They called them indentured servants. That's a nice way to say slave, but you're enslaved for a set amount of contractual time, which can be extended at the whims of whoever is enslaving you. So let's say that like the Irish or debt slaves, they signed a contract for 10 years. At the end of that 10 years, they're supposed to become free. Nowhere does it say that you will actually survive those 10 years due to the rape and all sorts of things that was occurring to enslave people, whether you were indentured or otherwise. Now, let's say you're at the end of your 10-year stint, which is, when you think about it, is kind of how they do imprisonment, when you're supposed to go to prison for a crime and you're almost at the end of your stint, but you can catch a charge while you're in there. So at the end of let's say you were at 9.5 years and something happened where that enslaver really don't want to let you go, so they charge you with a crime that you may or may not have committed, and now you have extra time on your sentence. So that's slavery as well. It's just a more what do they call it? Palatable form of slavery. You can digest that a little bit better than perpetual slavery, but it's one and the same. It's one and the same. So I've not really heard that being discussed among the ADOS community. Some speak about, well, the U.S. and the U.S. and the U.S. and the U.S., but they have to understand that it was colonies, and all of these colonies was granted based upon the king and or queens of England. Before the United States has only been in existence for less than 300 years. I think it's like 243 years. And the claims is that slavery has been going on for 400 years. So, yeah, they're missing some key elements there. And that's why I take issue with the approach, because it's kind of like shooting yourself in the foot before you even start the race. And that's what I see this movement doing, is shooting themselves in the foot before they start the race. But of course, that's just my opinion based upon my own research into the matter of the original peoples of the Americas and the enslavement of peoples of the Americas. Now, this is just one stature in one particular colony. They usually follow suit. So what's done in one colony is done in another colony. It may be worded a little bit differently, but the one thing that they do have to do is get permission from the crown. they didn't write the U.S. and say, hey, U.S., can we do this? Absolutely not. No. And to be quite frank, the crown is still in control of everywhere they colonized, to include North America. It is a misnomer to think that the United States has ever had independence, because they have never had independence. The Treaty of Paris, that is where the mythical illusion that they had freedom and people celebrate the 4th of July. Nowhere in there did it say that the crown relinquished its claims on North America. Nowhere. I've not read anywhere where the crown has ever relinquished its claims. To be quite frank, nowhere in the Americas have they relinquished their claims. Now, they may step in the background and put someone out in the forefront, but make no mistake about it, we are still in colonies, and these colonies are still being controlled by the crown. So with that being said, it's an act for the better ordering and governing of Negroes and other slaves in this province or slave code of South Carolina. So this piercing, I need to get this changed to a shorter bar. It's kind of getting on my nerves. Slave code of South Carolina, May 1740. If you want to do some more research on that and verify what I said, always verify what I say, because I could be totally tripping and or lying, and you wouldn't know if you don't verify. But yeah, peace, love, light. Continue to do what you're doing to decolonize, and research, verify. Update on my book. It's I just did the second draft, because it's like every time I think I'm finished, I find more information to throw in the book, because I'm trying to make it to where it's like telling my personal story, but it's just not telling my story. It's kind of telling the story of the Americas. And I thought I was finished, but then I ran across this code, and I'm like, you know what? I need to put that in the book as well. So we'll see. Alrighty. Leave a comment. Let me know what you think about the topic. Let me know what you think about this whole American descendants of slave movement. Are they on the right track? Will you be joining in? Yeah, let's just start the conversation. Let's have it. Alrighty. Peace.